Hi everyone, I'm Tom and today I'm going to be showing you Algae Inc. There's all these types of algae. They can be quickly grown, they can be used for all sorts of things. In this game specifically, we're looking at bioplastic, biofuel, cosmetics, and food, and we are those departments in the same company, Algae Inc. In our department, we'll be hiring staff to manage our production lines, research technologies, expand our departments, and balance spending money on improving the infrastructure for long-term success and achieving short-term goals by selling the stuff that we're making. The most efficient department wins Department of the Month, and that will win that play of the game. This is on GameFound right now from Game Brewer. I'll put a link in the corner of the screen and in the description to the campaign page. You can see all of the final stuff there. This is a prototype, should give you a very good idea of what the final thing will look like. It's a 2 to 4 player game. There is a solo mode in the works. I don't have it in my prototype at the moment. I've just set up the components for one player so we can be nice and zoomed in here. Now, as I said, each player is playing a different department, and this means we get different playables and things, but they can lead to radically different setups. We'll get more into this after I've kind of explained the game. But, even without knowing how the game plays, you can see very different kind of conveyor belt lines and product choices that we are making. For instance, the biofuel player can only make biofuel, but they can refine it for different lengths of time and make it worth more stuff. So I have set up for the food player here, so we are making different types of food. Making algae burgers, milkshakes, nori, and candy. I'll get into how that makes us different in a bit, but broadly, how do we play the game? Well, we are trying to be Employee of the Month, so we are playing over 4 weeks. A round is a week, and in those weeks, we have got 3 phases. On Monday morning, we will get income. Our player boards show us this income at the bottom here. First of all, we get money. We get €2 plus €1 for every one of these export discs we have removed by exporting our products to the various cities around Europe. And you also get income of points. That is 0 to start with, but it is a point for every one of your removed milestone cubes. There are various milestones that have been randomly distributed onto the main board at the start of the game. We'll get into what they mean later, but by achieving these milestones, you can get more points in your income. And then we get income from our employees. Everybody starts the game with 1 employee of each type. We have operators, engineers, and scientists. And everyone will start off with an extra employee of 1 type and a couple of the bonus tokens. Each of your operators brings in a new algae cube. Now you can see on my player board here, there are all these different types of algae, all these different species, but I can only have 1 type in my storage at the moment. Later on, as we upgrade things, I'll be able to take these tiles away and store different amounts of different types of algae in my machinery, and that will give me access to be able to make the different things. As you can see from the way that my conveyor belts work, at the moment, all I can make is the nori and the candy because of the type of algae that I can store. So for my income right now, I'd be getting the base 2 money and no points. I have 1 operator, so I would be able to take an algae cube from over here and pop it into my storage. We do the algae cube per operator in player order because different players will get different amounts of them, and if it comes around to you and there is none of the algae of the type that you want left, you can still get it, but you need to pay €1 per algae that you want. So that's our operators getting us new algae cubes into our departments, and the rest of it can be done simultaneously. Our engineers give us algae cube movement along our conveyor belts. Whenever we get kind of extra movement and things, it's always along these black and yellow conveyor belts. I've got 1 engineer, so I'd be able to move 1 cube. So I could get an algae cube into the next department to start to make some nori. I could even just go and make some candy if I wanted to. It speeds up your production because we don't have to wait until the main phase and choose to activate these different machines. But at the same time, these blue and black conveyor belts are not activated in any of this bonus stuff. Sometimes that's great because, hey, I'd get to make a candy and I can ignore this energy cost that's over here on my board. But sometimes that would mean skipping benefits like gaining energy and getting to introduce or remove cubes as byproducts. And then finally, our scientists provide us 1 science point each. I've got 2 scientists, so I can get 2 science points. They're over here on my science board. And you might notice that these are all kind of floaty cardboard things. There's loads of things that can be upgraded on your player board. So that's Monday morning. We get our income. Then we have our work week. There are 5 days in a work week. We get 5 turns each. In player order, you move your worker and then perform your actions. At the start of the game, everybody will be on this starting strip here. And so you can choose any of the actions that are on these first 3 strips. So you'll go there, perform the action that's on the space that you've picked, or if you don't want that action and you're just a bit stuck, you can choose to forfeit it and get a money, an algae cube movement, one of these question mark tokens. Or you can just take the action that you want. In future days, you can see by me going in the middle here and activating a machine, tomorrow I will only have the option of these 2 actions to take. You can see how your path is going to limit you throughout the week, all the way up to the top here when it will define the weekend bonuses that you're eligible for. The spaces can be occupied by multiple players. We don't get in each other's way there. So we'll get into more about the actual actions in a minute, but the actions have types themselves, or they will have kind of restrictions in them. So looking at the front here, you can recruit a staff member with this kind of action. There's no type there, there's no restriction there. You can activate certain staff members with this action. This one here, you can see it's got all of the colors on it. That's any one of them. But later on, you might activate this action, which is just activate your scientists. Here you could choose anybody. And this is activate a machine. So they're the 3 main types. And there's no letter here, which means you could pick any of your machines to activate. Later on, you're going to be restricted based on where you've gone. So going here, I would only be able to activate machine B. That's what these question marks are for. You can spend these to change the kind of subtype that you are using. So I could go here for B and spend one of these tokens, say, actually, I want to activate machine C. You can't change the type of action. I couldn't activate staff instead, not with one of these anyway. But if I got myself one of these wild tokens, you can change the complete type of the action that you're doing instead. So that's the kind of action selection we are doing. Then once we have finished our 5 actions, we have the weekend. Depending on what we have put our staff through in the week, we have an energy level over here. Various things will make us gain and lose energy. If you gain past the top, you'll get points. If you lose past the bottom, you'll have to spend money. But ultimately, where we are at the weekend is going to define bonuses that we get. And you can see these little things at the bottom. If we end the week in a positive, we are full of beans even after 5 days of hard work. You can get both of the benefits next to your worker. If you are just in the neutral zone, the yellow zone, you can just pick one of the 2 that's next to your worker. And if you are tired out, then you don't get any of the bonuses. Another cool thing that happens at the end of a week, so we're tracking the 4 weeks over here, the marker would move on and the action tile that corresponds to the week we've just moved to flips around and changes the options that are available to everyone. We move back to the start at the end of every week, of course. And in the final game, there will be multiple strips for each of the lines that can make for loads of different combinations. I think I said 81 combinations it's going to have. So let's have a look at the types of actions now. The simplest one is recruit a staff member. We've got the 3 different types of staff member. You can pick which one you would like from the pool, pay the cost at the top of their column, and get the associated benefit. Like I might want to spend my starting 2 income that I just got. I'll hire an operator. She goes in here, I would get myself another question mark token. I got one from setup when I got this scientist. Later on, you can get points and other tokens. Sometimes it's science points, sometimes it's these cogs and these market value tokens. We'll get into more about what they mean as we go on. But what about activating things? Well, activating the staff. There's 3 different staff members, so going here, you would pick one of the types to activate. If you went to a different one later, I would have to activate my operators, say here, or my researchers here, unless I was spending tokens to alter it. So what do the operators do? They will let you take new algae cubes, and it's the same rules as when we got them in income. It's 1 per operator. Even if you increase your income, which we'll see how to do in a bit, you still just get 1 per operator actually activating them. You can take whichever types that you want. You can mix and match. And again, if they're not in the tanks, then you can pay €1 for each of them. And the other thing they can do is export, but we'll get to that later. Your engineers give you engineering points, 1 each, and let you take engineering tiles from your science board and put them onto your player board, giving you lots of different options. So each scientist gives you an engineering point. I would have 1 engineering point here. And you can see on the various sections of your player board, on the left here, it shows you taking a tile from that section will cost you this many engineering points. You can take a total number of tiles equal to the number of engineers you've got. So even though I've got an engineering point and this is free, I've only got 1 engineer, so this would be the only tile I was able to take. I do, however, have a little rule-bending permanent ability. We chose these at the start of the game. Everyone gets 3 of their special cards. They're different depending on which department you're working in. And you get to use 1 card for its permanent ability, 1 card for a special export we can do, and 1 card for endgame scoring. My permanent ability here, when I activate engineers, I can actually activate my operators instead as temporary engineers. So in this game, I probably want to just really pile up on hiring operators more than anything, because I could use them for either activation. Downside of that is, by not hiring engineers, they're not going to pay off as well in the income phase. And it's one or the other. I can't have the engineers and the operators in it just because I've got this special ability. I could say, oh, actually, I've got 2 engineering points, and I could take up to 2 tiles if I want to. So we've got these engineering tiles that are these dark blues. They get taken from your player board, and they free up space for other tiles that we want to be placing here later on. There are correspondingly shaped spaces on your player board section that you will place these upgrades into. We'll talk about what they do later. There are also these neutral tiles here, these stripy ones. Spending your engineering points to take these away removes them from your board, but they haven't got a spot on your player board. They actually flip over and become these science tiles that we will later use actions to put back on here for bonuses. So I could take 2 tiles with 2 engineers, temporary engineers, and I've got 2 points, so that cost me nothing as 1 tile, and I could take something from the 2 section, just free up some space here, and let's put that, let's say in machine A, why not? So that's what the engineers do. Finally, we've got the scientists. When you activate them, you can spend each scientist to either give you a science point, so you move up on the track, you can only have up to 10 science points at a time, or with your activation, you could choose to place science tiles. You can see science tiles all over this player board. So the science tiles are the things stopping you from being able to store different types of algae, improving the costs, the rewards, the market value of all of your goods when you sell them, improving the income of your various types of workers. So if you choose to place science tiles, each scientist will let you place 1 tile. And their cost for placing them, they can go anywhere in your grid that there's space for them, and the cost is again on the left. So I've only got 2 science points. I probably wouldn't be able to do 2 things, but I could take something from my player board and improve something. I can also, if I've used engineering to remove neutral tiles, I can put them back on now as science tiles. The benefits of placing these science tiles are there are bonuses all around your board, whether it's energy, question mark tiles, wild tiles, getting the income of your victory points again, getting the income of your different types of workers again. You'll also get points at the end of the game for your biggest area of adjacent science tiles, for the most tiles that are touching each other. So the science and engineering work in harmony. You want to remove these engineering things and it improves your machine, but it also gives you space to be able to place more of these science tiles wherever you want them, because some of them can be pretty big. And I will tell you what my specific stuff does a bit later. So that's activating your 3 different types of staff. You'd go here, you'd pick one of them, or you go to a specific one and have to activate that type, choose the things on them. What about machines though? So again, it's either activating a specific machine, or you can choose to activate any machine if there's no letter on the action. Activating machine lets you move cubes along that machine's conveyor belt up to the machine's maximum capacity. So at the start of the game, before anybody's upgraded anything, for my machine, each capacity is just 2. By doing this engineering upgrade, hey, now I can do 3 in one action. I can even, and this is special for my department, I could spend an energy to increase the capacity of the machine that I'm activating. So all my cubes are down here. 3 capacity would be fine by me. I could activate machine A, and because of the way that my particular department works, I can use either of these conveyor belts, and I can split up these 3 cubes if I like. They can be going towards making candy and making nori, and we can look at a couple of things that my conveyor belts do. One thing that machine A does is to do with this blue and black conveyor belt. Remember, we only think about the blue and black conveyor belts when you are actually using the action to activate the machine, not when you're getting any other bonus movements. This is because machine A creates byproducts. And depending on the department that you're in, it can be biomass or bio-oil. In fact, in a 2-player game, so I'm playing the department food here that's main kind of byproduct is bio-oil. The other player would have to play one of the 2 departments whose primary byproduct would be biomass. and then other upgrades that we could get would add in the opposite thing. So the way this would work is I've got 3 cubes going along this conveyor belt, no matter which actual belt I want them on. And you can see this red exclamation mark here, and it tells me how many cubes are going along this conveyor belt. If there are 2 to 3, one of them has to be a byproduct. If there are 4 or more, 2 of them have to be byproducts. One of the engineering upgrades from up here can give you some more choice in this. So if you had 2 to 3 cubes, you can choose to do less of them so you don't lose your cubes, or more of them because you want more rewards from the byproducts. So for each byproduct that you have to do or choose to do, you can either burn it. Each byproduct you burn gives you 1 step in energy. So you'd move up the energy track, have more to spend later, or be eligible for the more lucrative benefits in the weekend. So you can burn it, or you can store them in a tank. So I'm moving 3 along here. One's got to be a byproduct. I'm feeling okay about energy. Let's store it in a tank. So remember, mine is bio oil. So looking at the main board here, I would put it in the bio oil container. And these boards are different as well, depending on the player count. There can be more space in a game with more players. So I have a bio oil coming into this tank here. It's filling up this space with €2 on it. And so I pop it in there, I collect my money, and the next person to produce bio oil will just get the 1. If someone does it and it's already full, it goes into the other tank and you get the money from it. If both tanks are completely full, then you can't choose to store it in tanks. You've got to just burn the excess. So I've burned one off, and let's just have 1 on each machine here. So I've stored 1 in a tank, 1 became a byproduct, and let's just have 1 going along each conveyor belt here. So the nori has to stop here, and I've got to activate machine B or C to get that to move any further. And my candy can just get made with 1 machine, but there is a problem over here. I have to activate this, which is a 1 energy cost. So not only did I not burn and get an energy, I've got to pay an energy. So maybe I should have made more candy in one go. I'm just doing 1 in this example though. So I have to pay an energy here. This is special to my board. Goes on there. I have got a candy in storage now, ready to be exported to Europe. You can see this little L tile here. When we do eventually activate the machine and make this nori over here, then we will gain an energy, and then the tile will flip. So in future, candy is going to cost 2 energy, but then the tile would flip back. But while it's flipped down, you get 2 energy when you activate this conveyor belt. Now this L tile, like all of the research tiles, can be removed and placed on the science board through a scientist action. So then the cost for candy will always be 1, and the energy reward up here will always be 2. There'd be no flipping. So they're the special conveyor belts that are on my particular machine at the start. But we can get a lot of different things. So if I was to get this engineering upgrade, it starts pointing up at the top here. This means when we use this top conveyor belt, when we're activating machine B, we get to take a biomass byproduct. It comes from the tanks. We don't have to pay for it. Top 1 from the tank. If there aren't any in the tank, then you can pay €1 to get 1 just from the supply. So a cube would get added to our factory at this point, potentially more stuff to be made. So with an action, for example, if I was activating machine B, I had 2 cubes on here, I would get to add a biomass cube at this point, and they would go into the holding area for machine C. Then this would flip to the other side and apply to the other conveyor belt later on. If I was to do the other upgrade that was sitting underneath this tile, then there's no flipping. They both always have that benefit whenever I activate machine B on these tracks. Of course, to start getting cubes on these tracks, I'm going to have to do the research that unlocks these storage areas. They've got these 3 and 4 on them because you have to have paid at least that many science points to put these tiles out, no matter which area you want to put them in. But once I did, I'd have access to my more lucrative but harder to make foods. There are capacity upgrades for the other kinds. There is this upgrade for machine C here, that for my burger track, when I activate machine C, I would have the option of paying an energy to add another biomass into the machine. And I have these L tiles here. So they go up between the machines, and they have this arrow and the 2 on there. And these work in a great way. So if I'd gone for this tile instead. So as we were going through machine A here, you've got your capacity for machine A, and that's all good. But it means after you've activated this machine, also get 2 cube movement on machine B. So I could have, moved my 3 along, 1 became a byproduct, leave them there, and then after you've resolved all of machine A's activation, you'd be able to do 2 cubes along B instead. Hey, I could go there instead. You are unlikely to get all of your upgrades out, so you need to pick and choose and pick a path for yourself. But what are we doing with all of this stuff once we have made it? Well, I mentioned earlier on about exporting. That's one of the options when you're activating your operators. I thought I'd show you how we make the stuff before we talk about how to deliver it to places. Looking out into the world here, all of these various cities have a demand for market value. And they have different numbers at the top of them. There are, capital cities. These are just predefined ones on the board, but the game does come with tokens to randomize all this up. So in the beginner version, at least, when we've got all of these numbers printed on, the first delivery has to be to Berlin to start us off. So Berlin here has a demand of 2. If we were doing the export action, you can see that all of my goods that I make have a market value on them. So if I had made 2 candy, for example, I would have a market value of 1 if I sent both of these candy away. All of my stuff as the food player, if I just try to send 1 at a time, the market value is 0. I can't get anything with that. But I can see that, hey, I've got 2 burgers here. They're worth 2 market value. Maybe I'll send my 2 burgers away. You can send more than it needs, but any excess market value is lost. So let's say I've made these burgers somehow. I have exported 2 of them to be 2 market value. I take my top export disc here. So now I have got more income at the start of each week. I put my disc out in Berlin, and if I'm the first player in a city, there is a bonus tile there. This, of course, will get me €1. But the other bonus tiles, you can spend these when you are doing an engineering action to get extra engineering points. You can spend these when you're exporting to get extra market value. So you know how I said 1 cube is worth 0 market value for me? Well, actually, if you spent a market value token, it could be worth 1 or even more if you've got more to spend. So I've met the market value, I've put my disc out there, and because I was the first, I got a bonus. Then you look at the milestones out here and see if you have achieved any. And they go from easy to hard. So the ones up here have a disc in the yellow region, have a disc in the red region. And there are 3 tiles, of which you'll choose 2, and they're all double-sided as well for loads of variety in the goals. So, hey, I've put a disc out here in the yellow region. I can take my top milestone disc, so I'll also get a point of income as well. Pop it on there, so the first player to do it gets a point. Brilliant. Anyone else to do that later isn't going to get anything, because it was quite easy to do. Later on, even the people that do it fourth get some points. After we've finished exporting, so I finished exporting to that city, but I could export to another city. You can do exports equal to the number of operators that you've got here. So if I had the stuff now to export to another city, I could do that. There are transport costs involved though. So looking at what I've got here, I've got no market value tokens. I've got candy here. So I could, if I wanted to export again, hey, I could get a market value of 1. Is there anywhere on the map that's got a demand of 1? Let's see, there are a few places. There's there. Now, this is where being the first can work against you. You do get the benefit of the tokens. If another player had already been in the city that I want to deliver to, there's no transport cost at all. But I want to deliver to one of these. Nobody has delivered to them. Let's say I want to go over here to London. Their demand is just 1, so they'll happily take my 2 candy. And we can look over at you can actually see it, it's the wrong way around. But if the city you want to deliver to is 1 away, it's going to cost you €1. If it's 2 away from anybody's disc, doesn't have to be your discs, you've got to pay 3. If it's 3 away, you've got to pay 6. But as you can see, these costs are on a blue research tile. I can use research to take this off and put it over there, and suddenly my transport costs plummet. That's true as well for my sale costs as well. Like suddenly, it takes 2 burgers to get 2 market value. No, now upgraded, 1 burger is worth 2 market value. That's true for all my different types, so I can really try and streamline, a machine that is going to make loads of burgers with all of these upgrades out, and let's make the burgers worth as much as possible, and maybe change the transport costs so we can just leap around the world getting to the particular places that we want to go to. Or maybe I just want to pump out candy, as easily and cheaply as possible. So while it's not worth that much, hey, I can make it really easily with just like 1 activation all the time. Oh, actually, I do have the little token I got, didn't I? So that's worth 1. I could do it. So I could have a second export. I could spend me candy. We can come over here, take another disc off. That's another income. Deliver to London. My disc's there now. That's a market value token for the future. And then, do I qualify for any other milestones? Now, London's in yellow as well, so we're not in red. Now, the milestones here, deliver to 2 cities with demand 5 or demand 2. Over here, this is in 1 action. have delivered goods with market value of a total 8. So they can be separate exports, but in this whole action, deliver with a sum of 8 at least. This is have delivered to cities in total with a demand of at least 22. This is deliver to particular cities. And down here, the most difficult ones, have at least 6 discs in one region and have at least 2 discs in all of the regions. So we've seen getting the discs out, exporting things, getting the milestones is great for income. It's great for points now, points at the end of the game. But also, we unlock these 2x tiles. When we are taking actions, we can spend these 2x tiles. You can even, if you earn one in the middle of activating your operators, you could spend it in that action. And it lets you take the action all over again. You can only use one 2x tile per turn. And with the second action, if I was up here activating my operators and then I used a 2x, I could then spend a question mark to make it a different type. Maybe I just want to activate my operators again. There's loads of flexibility in that. The downside of spending these 2x tokens is your extra income of points and money is gone now. Now, as an extra incentive to when we are exporting to try and drive you to do it all of the time, you want to anyway, but if you export in each of the weeks, you will get a special staff upgrade bonus. That can be in a random order, so just how they've come out here. If you exported in week 1, you would get the engineer upgrade. They flip over the capacity upgrades that you've got. So you see the one that I got earlier that changed the capacity to 3? Well, if you got that engineering upgrade, you would flip all of these over to 4s instead, and that includes the ones that are still on your science board, and you'd get those if you decided to build them later on. If you get the operator bonus, when you activate your operators in future, instead of having to choose, am I going to gain algae cubes or export, you get to gain algae cubes and export in that order, and upgrading your scientists, instead of having to choose to gain science points or put science tiles out, you get to do both of them in that order, gain the points and then do the tiles. So just finally, I thought I'd talk about a few different things that we can do on the food board, at least. As I said, it's radically different. You can see on the Kickstarter page the different types. So I make 4 different products. I can make candy fastest. I can do it by triggering any of the machines. Drinks and burgers work like everybody else's player board, where you've got to activate the 3 different machines. But I can put loads more byproducts into the burgers and make more of them. The downside of my stuff is it's not all great, because at the end of the week, if I still have food left in my storage, it degenerates. So let's say the end of week 1, I've still got this stuff. It slides into this middle section here. If an export contains 1 degenerated item, we deduct the market value by 1. People don't really want this, it's getting ready to go off. If at the end of the week I've still got any degenerated food left, it gets contaminated and I lose it. So there is a lot more time pressure on me to get rid of things as the food player. Having said that about degenerated food, there are 2 available engineering upgrades that you can get, that instead of deducting 1 from your market value total, hey, you can make 2 of the foods, either the burgers and the shakes or the nori and the candy. You can say, hey, I ignore that penalty. So degenerated food wouldn't be as bad. You'd still lose it if it's still there at the end of that week. That's something extra that we can do. I can combine food types and their market values to deliver to the same city. I've got my special things here, and everyone will have, a permanent ability that we've talked about. We've got endgame scoring here. I would get 2 points for every different colour of milestone that I've achieved. And I have a special export zone here. So as well as exporting to the cities, we have 1 chance to export over here. This is delivering cubes that are worth exactly 3 twice. I would get 8 points and €6 for doing that. It still takes a disc off. You're still going to get the extra money income for it, but the stuff you've done down here can't contribute to any milestones. So that's the downside of that. And we've also got upgrades for the income that you can get. So we talked about, each operator at the start of each week gets you 1 algae cube. Upgrade it, they get you 2 extra. Each engineer gives you 1 cube movement. Well, they get you 2 extra if you upgrade them. And same for your science points, 1 per scientist. But if you upgrade it, 2 extra. So there is a look at Algae Inc. There is a lot to explain here, and as I said, the other 3 departments work very, very differently indeed, and as well as kind of their fundamental differences, the different goals and permanent abilities that you have can be switched up all the time. I think everybody's going to have 9 cards, of which you will have 3 at the start of a game, and you decide which permanent, export, and endgame abilities you want to have active. The science grids will be different as well. There'll be one printed in the playboard and loads of different ones for you to change it up with. The values on the map and the bonus tiles offered will be different. The available things here can be really different as well. But yeah, you can see all of that on the Kickstarter page. I hope that one day, remember this was a prototype, I hope that one day I'll be back here showing you the game, hopefully the solo mode as well, with a playthrough. But for now, I hope this gave you a good idea of what Algae Inc is like and whether or not you would be interested in making it happen, playing it for yourself. There are hundreds more videos on this channel if you'd like to see more from me. Thank you so much for watching this one though, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye everyone.